Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to share with you. In today's episode, we talk to Nikki Stewart, otherwise known as Peptide Queen. We start off by talking about her IVF experience, which basically is she made a baby in a petri dish. It's just mind blowing. And we have the great honor and privilege of having her with us today. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you can subscribe for me. I'm growing, I'm new, but I have the most amazing guests lined up to bring you. That said, let's get started.
Oh
Right.
man, well, it's
Yeah.
so nice to have you. You look
Oh,
fabulous. You look so beautiful.
thank you. Thank you with all my new mom glory.
You're a new mom, Glory. Tell me how is that? How has that been? How's baby?
Well, I was being a little facetious there because, when someone ever says to you, I slept like a baby, you know that they weren't really sleeping that great. So I
Oh,
don't know why that came about. Like you slept like a baby, that's a good thing, you know? But I have to admit, actually, I'm pretty lucky because this is my third baby and he's been the best sleeper so far. He wakes up to eat, but he doesn't cry, so
yeah,
that's been what a dream, literally, but it's like he's using me as a pacifier because we're co-sleeping. So,
yeah.
I wake up and I'm, oh, okay, you're
Oh,
here.
someone's sucking on me.
Yeah,
It wasn't
exactly.
a dream.
Yeah, but he's quiet. He's never once in his life so far cried at night. Thank goodness. So I'm grateful for that. So I actually wake up feeling okay. For the day. I don't need naps during the day, and I'm getting on fine. I feel like I've aged 10 years and
Shut up.
and 4 months, but
No,
no.
no, you look
But I'm still
beautiful.
still doing it. So it's good, and he's great, and yeah, it's a lot better, I think, at this stage, at this point in my life than when I was younger. Having a baby, I feel like I get to
Surprising.
enjoy it more.
Yeah.
I'm home and, I can work from home and I feel like I can take in those little moments so much more than when I was younger. And I was just so worried about getting back to myself and getting back to my social life and getting back to, going out all the time and this kind of thing, which is exhausting in itself. You really like the recovery from having a baby is real, especially 13 years after my last one, so.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you mind? So I don't think I've even heard your story in terms of like why now? Like why did you decide to have a baby now?
Good question. Why not, right? I mean, actually, I think I always wanted to have a lot of kids. I love being a mom. It's my favorite job for sure. Has its moments, like any job. Right? No, it's not a job. It's a labor of love. But but yeah, I mean, I always wanted to have a big family, and this is my second marriage, and so my husband's first baby, and he's 40, and I'm 43 now. So it was like, okay, we really needed to think about it because we've been together a long time, but we just were, you know, doing life and enjoying things, and finally, I just got to the point of like, okay, it's now. This is the year. So
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
and I think that's really like the joy that we have in life, is having children. Truthfully, like there's so many great things that can come along in life, and I've had a lot of great things outside of my children too. But I have to say, like the things that are the most that I cherish the most are the moments with my babies, and my oldest is 16,
wow.
so yeah, she's gonna be leaving the nest here in not too long. So
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, like you already know, Kyle and I are planning to have one next year. So this,
yeah.
yeah, I see it coming. And that's what you hear. That's what my mom says. And that's what my sisters say. They're like, you think you're living life. You really think you're living life and living it to the fullest until you have a child. And then once you have your baby, they're like, yeah, it's like there's all the downsides you hear about, like sleepless nights or your life is no longer your own or all those things. They're like, but like the joy of seeing your baby's face and watching them grow and knowing it's an extension of you, they're so like, there's just really nothing like it. They say it gives like life a whole new sense of meaning. Yeah, so I can't wait. But how old is Mr. Bodie now? That's his name.
He's
Bodie.
passing behind me right now with
He
my
is?
helper.
Can you see him?
Yeah,
Can you
come
see him?
here.
Oh, so this is Bodie.
I'll introduce you.
Look at his little
There he
face.
is. Hey, look.
Hi.
Hi, Jess.
Hi, baby. He's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank
Hi,
you. He's
buddy.
almost 5 months already.
He's almost 5 months.
Yeah. So
He's
he's like, I think 20 weeks or 19 weeks this week, I think. So
he's
yeah.
so like he's like looking around.
Yeah. He's ready. He's like looking at the laptop, like, okay, I'm gonna go to work.
I'm ready. I'm ready, guys.
Yeah. He's been my little co-pilot, he's been going along with me to my meetings, and it's hard because you can't get longer than maybe 3 hours when you're breastfeeding away from the baby unless you take your pump. So
Yeah.
I'm at that point where I have no shame in saying, like, I'm bringing my baby with me,
Yeah.
and he's coming along, and I'll feed him in between meetings or whatever, but this is the priority. Drooling.
Yeah. No, he's beautiful. He's so beautiful. There's that photo from I forget her name. I'll have to share it later, but she's part of the UN, and she's sitting there in the European, like she's sitting there in like this meeting in the UN, and she has her baby, and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was always so inspired by that photo. I feel like that's the picture of like the new age, like
That's what we have to do.
woman.
Yeah, no longer, I mean, it's great if we can be home, and that truly, like I said, is the most rewarding job, really. But in this age, like we have to work, and so at this point it's like, okay, whatever it takes. Yeah, you gotta learn to work, right? Yeah, so hopefully he's learning some skills along the way.
Yeah, he is. I can already see him. Oh, beautiful.
So I'll send him. He's gonna go for a walk outside.
Okay.
So okay,
it's walk time. Bye, bud.
Okay, here you go.
Honey, I can't believe I've seen him. I remember meeting you at the nail shop, and you're telling me you were getting started with with IVF, which to me was like stars aligned because we were talking about it, and then like fast forward, and now here's Bodhi. Like that's trippy, super trippy. But tell us the story. So okay, so you decide, like you're gonna have a baby, and then like what was the process? Because there's gonna be women watching. I've actually done a wildcard like Google search on IVF, and there's like random information on YouTube. There's some women sharing aspects of their story or their journey. I feel like, I don't know about you, but like I would like to, and I guess that's why I feel fortunate in being able to talk to you right now. To be able to talk to someone who's been through it and can just explain the process, and things that you wish you had known beforehand, or just feel free to share like whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah. And first I tell you that the reason that we chose IVF was because we had been trying, to have a baby for a while, and we kind of both were like, okay, what's going on? We weren't living together at the time, we were just kind of just enjoying our lives, and I had work up here, and he had work down the south. So anyway, long story short, I wasn't sure like if we were just not missing, not together on the right times, or what was going on, or, because I had adrenal fatigue in the past, maybe my hormones were imbalanced, or, because he was using testosterone replacement, if maybe he wasn't producing enough sperm. I mean, there was a lot of questions along the way. Yeah. But the other thing that kind of was exciting to me was that in Thailand, you can choose the gender, and I guess that should be quite secondary, but I have two girls, they're 16 and 13. And yeah, I kind of fancied the idea of having a boy. I admit to you, and the other thing that really struck me as something that was super interesting and important, which I learned more and more about along the way, was that when you do IVF, you have the opportunity also to check the chromosomes. And that part to me was really where I found the most value in doing IVF, because it wasn't something that I even thought about before or considered. But as I dove more into, the reproduction at this age, I realized that that's an incredibly important piece. And that was part of the reason I think either, we weren't conceiving, but then we really found out actually probably it had more to do with, the testosterone replacement and having those sperm no sperm production, and so that was a process already to start, for my partner. He had to go through, fertility protocols where that stands, with HCG and HMG and, doing the injections himself, and in that time frame, we started to prepare for me to do, some egg collections and see kind of how things were on my side. And I was fortunate that I was 42 at the time, and I was fortunate that everything looked good. I mean, I think that's like the beginning point, is that you have to have that initial check and check your AMH level, and it looked like I had plenty of eggs, and from that regard, that level was good. And she said that my womb looked okay, and my hormones were still a bit low. And I wondered a lot if that was because I had a plant-based diet for 15 years, and maybe I was deficient in some amino acids. I mean, this is really getting into it. If I really get into like the kind of nitty gritty of where some things probably were a little bit off for me, and I have a healthy lifestyle, of course, like exercising and sleeping well, and I don't, stay out late or, drink alcohol and these kind of things. I mean, I really try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. It's kind of been my shtick. I'm a nurse and, in healthcare, so I had to do it myself. But I was surprised that like my hormones were just enough, and I kind of felt that was the case, I guess, as I, kind of crept into 40. And I started to wonder, like, if it was because of some nutritional things. I think having a plant-based diet is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but there are some pitfalls. And I never paid attention to protein. I never paid attention, I'd be the girl that would go to the gym and come home and have a banana, and I wasn't really paying much attention to it. So I did the checkup with our good doctor here, and he was amazing to help me understand, where I was deficient in some amino acids that, and I think I was missing the point too, that we're always talking about hormones. Well, if we go back a little bit, where are those hormones coming from? Of course, they're coming from our sex organs, but what gives a signal to our sex organs to produce those hormones in the first place? Our pituitary, hypothalamus and pituitary, right? What gives a signal to that organ, to that gland to make those hormones? Neurotransmitters. How are neurotransmitters made? Amino acids, so I had to go back to that very, very, very depth of level. I mean, we're always talking about, vitamins and minerals. We're checking. I had already been looking at my mineral levels. Of course, we know that we need, a guy needs a certain amount of zinc to make testosterone, for example. And you need a certain amount of testosterone to make, sperm.
Actually, as you were talking, so I have a few questions. So one, when doing like the hormone prepping for the egg collection, were those shots painful?
I didn't think so, but I'm a nurse, so I'm no stranger to injections. But yeah, I mean, look, like, it's not fun. I've never met anybody, in all my experience as a nurse, that likes injections, and of course, like, I deal with people that have, fear of injections and needles a lot, but I think the more that you, just recognize that it's for a good reason, it's, it's part of the process, it's only going to hurt for a second. They don't hurt longer than just that initial poke, and so for me, it was completely manageable. But yeah, after the fourth time that we did it, I felt like, a little bit like it's cumbersome. But and more so after that, I think it was just also like that remembering to do it was tough, and then even after, once you go through the implantation, it was about remembering to use your progesterone too, because I needed to take progesterone 3 times a day, orally, and also as a vaginal suppository, and so that for the first 12 weeks. And so I was always nervous, like, about missing a dose or, something like that. That probably was harder than the injections, actually.
Really? Okay. So it's oral and shots? Like,
No. The shots are before leading up to the egg collection.
And it's every day.
Yep.
Right? Because in one of the YouTube videos that I saw of a lady who went through it, she was saying that was her whole video. It was about like what they will not tell you. They're extremely painful. And she made it sound like, and so maybe it is a case by case scenario, or maybe it's the brand of whatever she was using. But she said it was like the shot, but just afterwards, she said she had a hard time sitting. Like, it was just painful. So I don't know.
I asked her to inject in my abdomen. So yeah, I thought that was manageable. I was able to do it myself, and it was easy. It's in like pre-filled syringes, except for one that you have to, it comes with a reconstitution fluid and you have to mix it, but I think, of course, the nurses, walk me through everything, quite thoroughly and make sure that it's very clear to you, what you're injecting. And I think, it's easily manageable. Most of the time when I run into people that I'm teaching them about peptides, they're so scared of the needles, and then they do it and they're like, oh, that was super simple.
Yeah.
So it's never fun, but I think, it doesn't hurt for a long time. And the thing also is, like, here's a tip. Anytime you give yourself an injection, into your body, when you take the needle out, you need to just hold some pressure over the injection site. Because I think probably what was causing this person pain, whoever made this video, was perhaps that she hit a vessel when she was taking the needle out, and it will continue to bleed underneath the skin if you don't hold pressure. So even with those tiny little needles, be prepared with a little bit of gauze or, something that you can just press, not necessarily rub and everything like this, but just press into the area for maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And that will prevent bleeding underneath the skin, which would then turn into a bruise, right? And if you have a bruise, it hurts, so I think that's probably the tip, the takeaway is just hold pressure.
Yeah, no, I'll always remember you coming over and just showing me, and now I like taught my sister, But anyway, okay, so that's great. And then I'm so relieved to hear that the egg collection part is not painful. For some reason in my mind, and I think maybe that's been one of the reasons subconsciously I've kind of been delaying getting started, is the fact that the whole process just sounds kind of painful to me, and the egg collection sounds painful, But it's really nice to know they sedate you, so that's really good news. And then it's interesting that you're saying, so this is kind of putting a little bit of a fire under my butt, it takes a year. Like you started and it took you about a year. That's interesting. So I guess for any lady or families, wanting to go down the IVF route, you should start sooner, because it just takes a while.
It probably could have been faster for us had we not had that communication about, checking the price of sending the chromosomes, but so that's why we decided to do 3 more collections and just wait till we had quite a bit. But had I gone back and done it again, I would have sent them for the testing every single time. I could have had a healthy embryo the second time that I did a collection. I wouldn't have known, but I just waited because I thought that it would be the same price. And that part is expensive, but I have to tell you that I think it is the most important part. I really do, because other than having, a healthy womb and having, healthy hormones and a healthy, foundation in your body to begin with, that is the most important part, or else it's not going to work. You need to have, working parts, of course. But the reason why probably IVF fails, I would say, is if you have abnormal chromosome, it's not going to take, your body will, reject it in most cases, so, and I was surprised at some of these abnormalities that were coming up. I was like, oh, that's a zombie baby, that's not even, because they show you really all the details about, where was which chromosome, and, was it a boy, was it a girl, and,
Really?
or, so you can see, where those abnormalities were. So I think, that gave me the reassurance that, okay, as long as all the other parts are checked, this is a healthy embryo. So there's a much better chance that it's going to take.
It's so surreal that this is now possible. So surreal. I find it so trippy. How much did it cost you guys in Thailand?
Good question. Yeah, I think when you go in, you have to give a deposit of 75,000 baht. And that was, so that's about a little over 2,000 US, right? And that will get you through your injections, and that will get you up until the day that you do your egg collection, for sure. And then I remember on the day that we did the egg collection, we would have to pay about another 120,000, I believe. That would be what, 4,000, something like that, 4,000, yeah. And that was it. That was really the total. So you can expect probably around 200,000 baht, for each round. And if you do the implant after that, I think the day that we did the implant, it wasn't much more, so that was if you did the whole thing, maybe it's just a little bit more than that, maybe 220 or something like that.
No, that's
Yeah.
quite remarkable. Like still, considering how much you would pay in the US or you would pay in other countries, like
Absolutely.
I feel like that's quite reasonable. Wow. And then where did you get it done? Just a little shout out to your doctor.
in Bangkok Hospital, Phuket. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so amazing. Yeah. When we go back to Thailand, we'll have to resume our process.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think Thailand is definitely a great place, to do IVF. I have friends that are in other countries that have, not had success for whatever reason, and have had, more expenses and not really had the options that they have here, So I am really grateful for, the team here and, the process that we went through, and not only that, but I don't know if you know about, of course, like Thai hospitality and Thai healthcare. I was, of course, I'm from the States, just like you, and I'm a nurse, and I came here for that reason. I came to Thailand for medical care, to set up clinics here and everything. And so when I first came here, I remember that a lot of people would ask me like, but is it safe? Is it clean? Do they have the same standards? And I have to say, being in Thailand made me a better nurse, actually.
Wow.
Because Thai nurses are so compassionate, so lovely, so soft and sweet and gentle, and extremely resourceful, extremely bright. I love working with Thai nurses, so I've had the pleasure of, working alongside them for the last 8 years and training them and, doing a lot of course, more in the integrative health space rather than IVF, but and Thai doctors are very, very talented too. Very smart. So you're definitely in good hands on here. In fact, like the Thai, one of the initiatives of Thailand is to have more medical travel. And I believe IVF would be one of those, great things for that.
Yeah.
And I have no affiliation, with any, any reason other than I had, a great experience.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Maybe you could share more about what brought you, so you're telling me, okay, so I know a little bit about what brought you to Thailand. And actually it's quite interesting because the doctor, and I'll let you tell the story proper, but I just found it interesting. The doctor that you came to work with, Dr. Lodi, we can link I saw he started a YouTube channel, so we can link him down below, was actually going to treat my dad. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. I think it's been almost like 2 years now. And he was going to treat him, but I think it was like peak of or end of COVID, and Dr. Lodi had shut down. Where was it? At Lifeco or somewhere he was operating out of? Yeah. So I ended up piecing the protocol together. This is a separate conversation, but piecing the protocol together through Dr. Suthi, who then I later found out is a partner of yours. So it's funny how we're all connected, and that's one of the things I love about Thailand and Phuket in general, is it's it's like a hub, right? And it's actually, there's so many expats. Everyone is kind of connected in some way, it's amazing. But anyway, so then I end up meeting you, and then I find out you're actually treating a lot of crypto people that are part of, like some of them are our friends, some of them we don't know. There's a large crypto community in Phuket, and it's interesting, like that's how we're all connected. But anyway, maybe you could just share a little bit more, because I find this very interesting too, maybe for some of our audience, because our audience is like, of course, it's going to be women, families interested in IVF, people in general interested in biohacking and peptides, because we're going to get into that in a little bit, but integrative medicine, and I know, so maybe you can start, like, I know you, what was it, like you worked in oncology, or an oncology like nurse, or you can kind of take it from there and fill us in.
Yeah, I worked with Dr. Lodi for years in Arizona. He's so funny. He's like, hey, you need to come with me. We're going to set up clinics in Thailand. And I was like, what? You're crazy. And he said, no, I'm going to retire there. He said, I want to live there, and I need your help. I need you to help me set up clinics. So what are you doing, next week? Can you go to Thailand? This is how he is.
Whoa.
Okay. So I started coming here just short term, because my two children were, quite young at that time. It was like 2012. So my youngest was 2. And, so I would come for like maybe 3 weeks at a time and go back. And we were, in Chiang Mai and then in Bangkok, starting to set up clinics. And really integrative healthcare here didn't really exist. There wasn't really much anti-aging medicine at that time.
Integrative health, for those who don't know, what is integrative health?
Integrative health is just combining, kind of different traditional therapies, I would say, East and West, so some conventional things together with some of these more kind of, I would say, alternative therapies, but we call it integrative, meaning that, it's the best of both worlds, because in some cases we do need to use some, conventional things together, particularly, when we talk about cancer even, that was my role was, the kind of the head nurse in Dr. Lodi's clinic in Arizona, looking after patients that had already been for conventional treatment a lot of the time. And then they were told, that there's nothing else they can do, and so they would come seeking, some other approach to their healing. And it was amazing. It was the best job I ever had. I mean, and I have to thank Dr. Lodi because he was a mentor for me, to open my eyes to a different type of healthcare. I could never probably go back and, really, work as a nurse in the conventional space again. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I think it's there for a reason. We need it. If you have an accident, you need surgery or, IVF and these kind of things. I mean, there's so many great things about it. I just think that there's so much more we can do from a natural standpoint. And Dr. Lodi always said, our bodies are designed for healing. If you're cutting an apple in the kitchen and you cut your hand, it's going to heal, and that just struck me. Like when I started working with him, it was like, yeah, wait a minute, here we are learning as a nurse, so much of our schooling was about pharmacology, how to prescribe, how to give medications and how to deal with the side effects of them. Like that's it, rather than, what we can do to even prevent disease in the first place, and so a lot of what we did in that program was around lifestyle. Like I said, the things earlier, going to sleep on time, avoiding things like toxins in your body, like alcohol, smoking, drugs, blah, 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 and exercising and, having a positive outlook and, maintaining a healthy mind, let's say. So yeah, these things are probably 75% of any type of integrative approach to healing. And then some of these other therapies that, you can add in there, things that you're really familiar with, Jess, IVs and supplements and, peptides, of course, and these kind of things that can kind of help you along the way to have, faster results maybe, or, to prevent getting any abnormal results in the first place, so yeah, I was really lucky to have worked with him. And then in 2015, he said, I need you to move there. There's going to be a clinic in Phuket and it's an empty room. So you need to turn it into a clinic and hire the doctors and the nurses and get them trained and get this program going. Are you in or out? And I said, like, buddy,
can I think about it?
I just said, like, I have 2 small kids, like, how do you expect me to do this? And, he said something to me that I will never forget. And it was the best advice ever. He said to me, just imagine it. Yeah. All right. What would it be like? What would it be like to take my life and move across the world with 2 small children, and start there? And I started thinking like, okay, well, where did my kids go to school? And I found this, international school that was really close to where the clinic was supposed to be. And when I watched the video of this school, I literally cried. I was like, this is what a school should be, and
what school is this?
United World College. It was called the Phuket International Academy at the time. It was started by a German fellow named Klaus Hebben, who had this vision for a school that, incorporated mindfulness. And and so, I mean, my girls, I have 2 teen girls, 16 and 13, and not a single bit of drama. Never do I hear, I don't hear about drama with their friends. There's no bullying in this school. They can accurately identify their emotions. My daughter knows when she's a little bit crabby, she'll just say to me, like, I'm just feeling frustrated, Wow. I probably just need to rest. And they know how to meditate. And they start their day with time in every day. They call time in, which is really like mindfulness, and meditation. They supported their plant-based lifestyle, and provided those foods for them. A lot of outdoor education, a lot of service-based based education, so I was like, this is how it should be, and I was really impressed. And that's why I never left. It was because of the school. I set up that clinic. I did what I came to do, but then I was lucky. I actually started working in Tanyapura after that, for class, because he had the facility next to the school, which is a massive health integrative, health and sports facility with triathlon training and Olympic sized pools and, track and field and running and bicycling. And they had a clinic, and they said, can you help us, to put this together, to put, make programs that make sense for people. I think that's the first time I met you guys, actually, was there. Not, so I think you guys came in to check it out or something. I met.
Yes, that's right. I remember
Yeah.
now. Yes.
I was in the clinic that day, and yeah, so I was really lucky to have worked there for a long time, and then COVID came, of course, and that was a challenge for everybody, and a lot of people had to leave Thailand, and a lot of expats lost their jobs here. But I was lucky; we had new owners that came in, and they wanted to keep me. But at that time, I actually before that had started the peptide company. I started getting into doing peptides. And so when that happened, I said, like, I really would like to focus on this anyway. Could I just, help you guys and consult? And I still do. I still help them out. And I was there this morning, helping them, because I still believe Tanyapura is really the original, integrative health center on this island. They have it right. They have every single thing under one roof, that someone would need for a true transformation in their health. If you really need that immersive program, you can go there and you can do everything, so it's a fantastic place. But yeah, so that's where I ended up, and I'm on my own now, and I'm grateful for that, because now after having this baby, of course, I get to be home, and I can work from home. It's not easy. It's a luxury to be on the laptop and talking to you, and getting back into my consults. But luckily, also in Thailand, you can have help. It's affordable,
Yes.
and yeah. So that's where I'm at now. Is just really focusing on helping people through longevity programs and age reversal and even disease treatment. Still, some of that we still work with cancer patients here and there and all over the world. So I'm lucky through via telemedicine that we can help manage programs for people everywhere. And mainly we're working with peptides, of course. That's really where my nerdy side lies. I love when I learned about them, I just dove in. It was really interesting. So that's been really my kind of fun spot now.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing. Shout out to Thailand. We're doing shout outs now, but for real, like I have learned a thing or two when you said it as well, about the Thai culture. They're so graceful, so kind. They're soft, as you said. They're hard workers. They're so diligent. And Dr. Suthi too. He just kind, professional, and I'm really happy we know you guys. And then just like a quick word too for whoever is watching, and I don't know how much you guys promote this or Tanya Buddha promotes this, but they'll come to your house. I know to be able to get these treatments is not just a luxury, but it's a luxury in all senses, because it's not always so cheap, but thankfully in Thailand it's cheaper. But then it's just the time of going there, and I think that's why we gravitated towards Tanya Buddha and Dr. Suthi, was because we'd have teams come in, or different friends in the crypto space, because Kyle is super connected. Kyle's my partner. I think most people watching this would know, but so it's a constant influx of just like different like crypto OGs or like builders in the space, and they'll just like come over to our house, and everyone wants IV, and then Dr. Suthi, and then like all these nurses show up and they hook us all up to to these IVs. So that's really wonderful. And then I heard that Thailand, maybe more of this. I think you just mentioned it. But what was it? The government of Thailand is now they're investing in Phuket's development. Is that right? I read an article about this, and they're saying that they're going to be investing. I don't know what impact this has on Tanyapura, or maybe your business, but they're going to be investing in what was it, medical tourism or something. Which is awesome. Awesome. I feel like I want to both promote it and then at the same time keep Phuket our little secret, because it's not so developed or crowded yet, But Thailand is a gem, and Phuket is our little haven. So how did you get into peptides? And
And then, yeah, just take it from there. Like your company, just take it from there.
Okay, yeah, this is the fun part for me actually, because actually peptides happened by accident for me. I had what came first? I had an injury, yeah, and my husband, of course, he's from Australia, so peptides are pretty popular in Australia, but most people think about them for sport, for bodybuilding, for muscle building, for weight loss, for this kind of thing, and also peptides are very popular in Russia, by the way. A lot of good ones started in Russia. It wasn't until probably like 2016, that peptides became really popular in the States. And even myself, I didn't even really know about them at that time until, I had this injury. I was doing the splits in yoga because that was part of my kind of healing, journey, I would say, from having adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue is when, you have pretty significant stress, right? Yeah. Raise your hand if you have, yeah. And for what are the symptoms, the having hormone imbalance, having, really fatigue, having, sometimes water retention and, gut disturbance and poor memory and, I mean, literally like every symptom underneath the sun. And I had it. I had been dealing with trying to get myself back on track for about 3 years, because if you look at the issue with adrenal fatigue, it's like, or how do you solve it? It's stress is at the core, and for some people that stress dates back to, early childhood stress. And once, they have some significant amount of stress, wherever it is in life, there's always that sensitivity that's there. And so you really have to be good at monitoring your energy bank account, because you can kind of dip back down again, and it takes a long time to fix, because it's not easy to just quit your job and just lay around and get all the rest that you need. Who can do that? Like you still have to keep working, you still have to keep at it. And that was my case. I did as much as I could. I was even doing IVs, I was doing all this stuff, but I couldn't really get myself better. And I got hurt. And I was, unable to really walk appropriately. And I was bummed because I was also trying to run at that time. And so my husband was like, why don't you just inject this BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4? And I was like, what's that? I'll do it. Okay. So I got some from him, and I started just injecting it, not even knowing really what I was doing with it. And I couldn't believe within 30 days, I was back to running, and with no issues. Yeah. And fast forward a couple months later, my gut started to feel better. And then I started thinking like, okay, what is this about? Because one of the bigger things for me with adrenal fatigue was having some pretty significant gut disturbance. It was quite having a lot of bloating and gas and, things that were not comfortable, and also sometimes embarrassing. Right. And so my gut started to feel, I really felt flat. I was like, what is this about? And I started to realize that BPC 157 is one of these things that we make naturally in our gut. And we upregulate it naturally to help heal the tissues in our body. And so my gut started to feel a heck of a lot better. And I was like, this is pretty interesting. Well, around that same time, the owner of Tanya Pura asked me, can you get thymosin alpha 1? Because it was around the pandemic. And he said, I've heard that this is really great for the immune system. Do you think you can find it? And so we found it, we got it, and he gave me 10 vials, and he said, you use it too. And I was like, okay, like any good nurse, just start injecting yourself, And I didn't even really know how to use it at that time. I was using it every day. But on day 5, I woke up with a clarity that I hadn't had in 3 years, like an energy, like a real clear feeling in my body. And that's when I really started to take the deep dive, I think, because I started to realize that the way thymosin alpha 1 works is that it increases our natural killer cells. And of course, being a cancer and oncology nurse for so long, I was like, this has to be beneficial for cancer patients. And I rang up Dr. Lodi and I said to him, what do you think about this? And he said, yes, 100%. He said, thank you so much for telling me about this. He said, every person with cancer should be on this. He said, this is amazing, and can you get me some? and so, of course, I started to really become interested in what else is there. I had such a great expect from the BPC from my injury and the thymosin beta 4 and now this for my immune system. And by the way, thymosin alpha 1 can be used for autoimmune conditions, can be used in chronic fatigue and things like this, so it's not just cancer, or even just for the person that's like getting sick quite often. So I started to really stay on that regularly. And then, of course, another part of adrenal fatigue was that I gained like 17 kilos overnight with it, and because of the hormone imbalance. And then literally to where people were like, what happened to you? And they're like, why don't you just exercise? And I'm like, I'm exercising. Yeah, it was awful, like, and so yeah, I started to find out about like the growth hormone peptides, the growth hormone secretagogues, and I started using a combination of CJC1295 and ipamorelin. I'll be darned, the last 10 pounds that I could not get off of me for 3 years just came off. And I started feeling very strong. I started to, start to feel more confident. And one last thing that I would say was really significant for me with adrenal fatigue was the brain fog. I mean, I literally thought I was going to lose my job at some points. I would open my laptop at work and be like, what am I doing? Or just like, yeah, or just going like app to app on my phone. I would get lost. I would forget what I was doing in that, like, what am I even looking for? And I felt I couldn't remember people's names, and I felt really shy to like even talk to people sometimes because I felt stupid. I couldn't remember what we talked about. I said no to opportunities for public speaking because I felt like I was going to sink, that sinking feeling you get in your heart, the nervousness, right? And I was asked to contribute to books. I couldn't string my words together to, write a couple paragraphs for a book. I said no. So I turned down things. It was really impacting my life. And anyway, I went to Germany to treat a friend of my boss who had Alzheimer's. We weren't sure if it was Alzheimer's or dementia at that time. He was just extremely forgetful. And unfortunately, kept forgetting to come to his appointments too. But one of the doctors there had a peptide called dihexa, which is a neurologic peptide. And then they said, hey, do you want to, take some of this? You want to take like 10 days, And I said, like, I'll try it. And I could not believe, like, just a couple days into it, at like 10 p.m. one night, I was typing away at my emails and it just was flowing. It was flowing like it had never flowed before. And I was like, this is amazing. I have got to get my hands on this. So I started looking into what other products were available for neurologic peptides, and I found out about CMAX and dihexa. So when we started our company here, these were the first products that I wanted to bring in. And I would say that was a turning point for me. Like, I felt like I was back. I felt like I was alive again, like I had myself back from a place that I never would have thought I would have got pregnant again because I was so imbalanced. I wish I could show you like photos of, the water retention and, the ankles and the bloating in my tummy and the, it was terrible. And it was real. And I have a really big space for helping people through that now, for women that are dealing with hormone imbalances and at the core of it, adrenal fatigue. And it's very common. And a lot of times they go to practitioners that are like looking and they're going, you're normal, because they're looking at their lab results and they're in the normal range, but they're nowhere near optimal. Their thyroid's off, their adrenals are off, their, hormones are off. And this is why I love Dr. Suti, because he was really the doctor who helped me understand that in that condition, you need to take a very gentle approach, so probably I was overtraining. I was adding more stress. I was doing high doses of vitamin C when I should have been probably just doing a little bit. I was really probably overdoing it with a lot of the glandulars and the supplements that I was just trying everything, throwing everything in to see what worked. And I was being a really good Dr. Google, and I realized I just had to put my hands up and say, like, I need help. I'm a nurse and I thought I knew a lot. And I don't claim to be an expert in any of this, by the way. I'm a nurse, like I said, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, but, and we have to be very grateful for our doctors who are very well trained to look for abnormal, symptoms. And that's why I choose to work with one now, to guide people through, programs and to use peptides, because I have to say they were the pivotal point in getting me back on track. And I just needed to make it available. So we started, I actually contacted a guy who I was following quite closely from the United States, who started Tailor-Made Compounding Pharmacy in 2016, named Ryan Smith. And he's a biochemist. And I was always watching his videos. And so I found his email and I wrote to him and I said, hey, do you want to start a company, a peptide company with me in Thailand? And he's like, yes, who are you? And I have friends that had the compounding pharmacy in Bangkok. And I said, do you guys want to start a peptide company with me? And they're like, yes, what's a peptide? So I had 2 yeses and it took about a year to get started, but we were able to find out a way to, make these products available and to put together a really great, product list of things that, really started from my own needs. I have to admit, I was like, I need that, I want that, I need that, I want that. And so I've been able to try everything that we have, and have had found experiences with every single one of them. And for 3 years now, have been really lucky to have been able to do that with so many people. And I literally every day am so grateful, because it allows me to still be a nurse, to just be able to reach to people and to say, hey, how you doing? And them say like, oh my God, this is like limitless. How long can I say, oh, I feel amazing. Look at what I did today. Look at this project I completed. Look at, or like my injuries healed, or, my energy's improved. And I love getting that feedback, and so it's not a cure-all. I don't want to say that. It's not a wonder drug. It's not a magic bullet. You still have to work with the doctor. You still have to look at your hormones and look at your supplement, your nutrition, and it's everything, but these are additional tools that are so specific that I love, because it's like, instead of reaching for a pharmaceutical, if we have someone that has depression, for example, what are your tools? What are your options? Pharmaceuticals? If you have someone that has, a problem with their libido, okay, there's Viagra and Cialis, and these things probably work, but there's a peptide that actually does the same thing, and will help with, women even with sexual dysfunction, that, or just want to sort of improve their sexual life. There's one called PT-141 that Suzanne Summers attributes to her steamy love life with her husband in her 70s. How cute. And so they're powerful. So that's how it started.
What a beautiful story, what you're sharing. So many thoughts ran through my head as you were sharing. One of them, just quickly, is I'm a testament right this moment to TA1, thymosin alpha 1. So on Monday, I got this bug that's going around. We're in Dubai, and it's not COVID. No one gets scared, but some sort of cold, and I don't get sick. I don't get sick. I know you and I met. My immunity system was a little bit broken, also due to what I think was adrenal fatigue, just because of just a very fast and intense sort of business life, and then plus family, right? Because my dad ended up passing away, and I was overseeing his whole, medical, protocol, and just, it was emotional too. It was just perfect storm, and that happens in our lives. So I was just really tired. But anyway, I've done really good at recovering. But anyway, so but I don't get sick is what I'm saying. But anyway, I caught this bug. So Monday I wake up and I'm like, no, I don't even recognize these symptoms, my head, my cough, my chest, everything. And I remembered that we had ordered TA1 from you, right before, just a few weeks ago, when Jane was flying over here. Jane is actually Thai, and she helps us with everything. She's wonderful. But anyways, I remembered I had this in the refrigerator, so I took some. And wow, today is Thursday. It's been, 3 days? And look at me. Yesterday, I was sick, so it's actually probably best, because we were supposed to speak yesterday. So it's actually probably best I didn't speak, because I was tail end of it, but I was very much so symptomatic. Today, I feel great, and I've done 2 doses of thymosin alpha 1 day apart, right? Because it's twice a week. So I'm my own testimonial over here. But I just wanted to say that. And then the second thing that really struck me was how interesting it is that, it's through, and not to get all motivational speaker over here, but it's just a fact, it was through your own needs, right? And your own health problems that you discovered this. And then you ended up just piecing it all together, which, also took a lot of courage, because I think so many of us sometimes, you get a bolt of inspiration, and if you don't act on it, I heard you have, I don't know who it was that said this, so hopefully I'm not quoted on this, but it was you have 5 minutes. If you're hit with a bolt of inspiration, an idea, if you don't act on it, if it's something out of your norm, it's going to go away. The momentum's going to go away. So I think that's amazing, that you acted on it right away, and then now look at you, you have this amazing company, and you're helping so many people, just in our circle, once again, because I remember meeting you that day too, at Danyapura. I think I went in for ozone. I think I was getting over COVID. And I had just done some like wild card search, and I found out that ozone, which is basically like they withdraw your blood and they spin it with just a bunch of oxygen, right? They spin it and then they re-inject your own blood into you. I actually made like a little homemade video on it. Maybe I'll share later. But on my experience, it sounds a little creepy, but it really works, And I had got COVID, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna get, like this is not what's happening to me. So I Googled it and I found out there were actually some use cases. I know it sounds like I'm derailing a little bit, but I found out that there were some use cases of people with COVID that, ozone was helping them like get over it faster. So anyway, so I think that was the day that we were in the office, that I first met you. But it was later actually, because I don't think like I met you, but then like I think it was at the nail salon that I actually like bumped into you again. But at that point, and when we actually spoke, awesome. And it's just once again such a small world in Phuket, that night before, we were at some little get together. I don't know if you know him, Michael. He's like Australian, Michael Breton. I'm slaughtering his name, but he like knows everybody in Phuket. But we were actually having a little get together at his house, and there was like this little circle, and we were all like chatting, and talking about like everyone was talking about what they were doing, like regarding like reverse aging or biohacking or health, and it was like this mixed crypto scene, and everyone was like, yeah, I get my peptides from Nikki, or like, yeah, Nikki, and I was like, I think I know Nikki, but I'm not sure, And then lo and behold, I bumped into you at the nail salon, and I'm like, Nikki, and then I remembered it called dots. But it's amazing. No, I just find that amazing, your story amazing, and now you're helping so many people with peptides. But could you I know you threw out like a few names, but which were those peptides you said? Like you mentioned a few peptides right now. Like which are the key peptides that you like help most people? And of course, everyone needs to go talk to a doctor or contact you, and we'll leave your contact information at the bottom of this video, and people can contact you. But yeah, so maybe you could just share which are like the top peptides that you would say most people, after doctor's evaluation and a conversation with you, like which ones are like the most common and what are their benefits?
Perfect. Yeah. So, I'm pretty lucky because, like I said, I had a lot of experience to work with a lot of people that were doing their biomarkers, really looking into their lab works, which I always suggest doing because, as the old saying goes, you can't manage what you can't measure. Right. So having that baseline is really helpful just to, be able to know kind of if things are off a little bit, of course, but also to see change over time. I was, really looking into lab work a lot, both when I was working, in Tanyapura and kind of like doing intakes for people, listening to their stories, kind of how is their lifestyle, what are their habits, and what's going on, and how does that correlate with the numbers that we see on paper too? What are their diets like? How are they exercising? Is their sleep good? Is it bad? Like, what is their age? All these things combined. And what I really started to pay attention to was that most humans, all of us really are subject to really like 4 big issues, which is immune dysfunction, gut dysfunction, insulin resistance, and inflammation. These are really the root of most issues that arise along the way with, health issues or weight gain or weight loss or, adrenal fatigue or, these are some of the things that are really at the foundation. There are peptides that fit into there so perfectly that can really address all those things. And they were really the ones that I just mentioned, which, thymosin alpha-1, I'm with you. It's probably my favorite peptide. It's approved by FDA in over 30 countries. It has an amazing safety profile. It's a fragment of what our thymus makes naturally. Now, remember, our thymus is this gland in our chest that is responsible for our memory T cells, right? So when we get exposed to things, we're young, it involutes by the time it starts shrinking by the time we're about 17. But when we get exposed to things when we're young, we develop memory T cells, these cells that, I recognize that. So we build up our immunity, right? So as we age, we have an aging immune system too. And so this peptide becomes, particularly important in the older population. But now, so we see it even, like you said, in our group, our age group, it's easy for us to kind of, you around someone, they sneeze and it's like, next thing you know, you got a cold, and that wouldn't happen if you had a really, maybe robust immune system from, really paying attention to your sleep and really paying attention to your gut health and really paying it. But I mean, let's be honest, like life happens. We're traveling a lot, or we're on different time zones, or we go through a bit of stress, or, our diet falls off, or there's things, and not to mention, like, we still have even some viruses and bacteria that we're exposed to. So already in our body, we have some stress, or maybe our teeth are bad, or, there's so many things that put this little stress on our immune system. So thymosin alpha-1, for that aspect, works like an immune modulator, I would say. So in a person that has autoimmune and the immune system's a little bit in a kind of haywire state, it'll help to kind of calm it down. Or someone that maybe has a little bit of an underfunctioning immune system, it'll start to boost it. So, and that boost is not the right word, but anyway, if we really look at what's involved, I don't want to get too technical on these cell lines, but, we see improvement in natural killer cells. We see, improvement in CD4, CD8 ratios. I could go really in depth into really those cells, but I think the most important thing is just that, really anyone who's, been a little bit stressed, or is under the weather quite more often, or has more serious conditions, thymosin alpha-1 you can use in just about any condition. And again, even in the studies, they use very high doses without any side effect. There was more side effect in the placebo group than in the treatment group, so
Whoa.
amazing peptide. Yeah. And its counterpart, the thymosin beta-4, is also a fragment of our immune system, or of our thymus, but it's completely different. Now it does have we do see some immune benefit from it, but really it is one of the first peptides that we upregulate naturally upon an injury. And we do so that we start to aggregate our own stem cells to an area of injury to promote the healing process. And it stimulates what we call angiogenesis. So the formation of new blood vessels, which is really great for healing injuries, but we don't use this in a person who has a history of cancer, by the way, because of that effect. So there are some things to know about using peptides. I mean, there's a lot of peptides that are available, as research chemicals online, and you have access to go buy them. But I really discourage people from doing that without some guidance on how to use them, because there are some risk factors, even though peptides are very safe. If I need to define it, by the way, because maybe some people are listening, like, what's a peptide?
Yeah.
A peptide is just a short chain of amino acids. And so anything under arguably maybe 50, is considered a peptide. Over that is considered a protein. So for example, growth hormone is a good example of this. Growth hormone, the actual growth hormone that you can inject and, build your muscles, or, growth hormones are a fountain of youth hormones. So there's lots of other uses to it, like better skin, nails, hair, things like this, better immune function, bone function, weight loss. But that 191 amino acids is considered a protein. Right? But the growth hormone peptides are a little bit different. They're shorter amino acid sequence, and they initiate our own production of growth hormone. So this is great in our age group, because we can promote our own production, telling our hypothalamus and our pituitary to make more growth hormone and release it. So you still see all the benefits of, having better levels of growth hormone in your body. We call IGF-1 is the blood test that we check for that. Better energy, better sleep. That's probably one of the best ones. People start within the first week noticing that they sleep better. They feel stronger. They recover faster. Their immune system functions better. They have less risk for bone fractures and, sarcopenia, the loss of muscle, so these peptides are really foundational too, if someone, is low. So that's a really great example of why you should check first, check your lab work to see, like, what is your baseline? Do you actually need it? And then, so besides the growth hormone ones and the thymosin beta-4, the other really foundational one for the gut, like I mentioned earlier, is the BPC 157. BPC 157 is something that they discovered when they were doing the Pavlov's dogs experiments. If you remember that, they found it in gastric juice. And so They recognize that this peptide helps to heal our tissues, will help heal your gut. So it's also available not only as an injection, but as an oral capsule. So if someone has an issue in their gut, then they might consider taking it as an oral capsule, and they will notice less bloating. You can use it in, just about any, irritable bowel condition, Crohn's, colitis, things like this. I've seen people using it in those conditions with good effect. And with the injection, you would primarily be using that as, for injuries and things like this, together with the BPC or the thymosin beta 4. That combination is called the Wolverine stack, because it helps you to heal like a Wolverine. And it's probably the most popular products that I would say people come to me for, or come to us for, is that combination for injuries or for pain, because also the thymosin beta 4 and BPC 157 have anti-inflammatory effects to them as well. So even in generalized inflammatory conditions, or things like, tennis elbow and these kind of things, we'll see that, pain reduces and they're able to have better function, their arm, or, whatever they're training. But sometimes in those longer term inflammatory things, I'll notice that people want to repeat that dose maybe around 4 or 5 months, which is fine. Again, the safety on these things is quite good. You probably need to reduce inflammation, at any point, some way along the line, because we're always, needing to address that in our lifestyle. We're getting, things that are promoting oxidative stress and inflammation in the body all the time, so in a longevity program, we would probably be repeating that dose anyway around the 6-month mark, so yeah, that treats already, I said, the immune system, the, inflammation, gut dysfunction. And the other thing that is wildly common now, unfortunately, is insulin resistance. So when we look at lab parameters and we see the people that have a glucose, over 90, maybe even arguably 85, or they have, fasting glucose, and they have, a hemoglobin A1C even over 5. Or fasting insulin over 5, we see that probably already, and there's even some other tests that you can look at, that are even more sensitive than that, that could show that we're probably already heading down the road of insulin resistance and prediabetes, so when you're getting your hemoglobin A1C up around 6, you're heading in that direction. And so and insulin resistance itself, is creating more inflammation, is, creating more immune dysfunction, and, all these things go hand in hand, so that there's definitely some products that are going to be really helpful for that, such as these ones that most people know about now, which is why peptides are really popular right now, is like these GLP-1 peptides, like the semaglutide and tirzepatide. I love these products. I think that they're very, great. There's a lot of bad talk about them, about losing your muscle mass and this and that. But when you're doing it the right way, and you're using the doses correctly, and you're being guided by a practitioner who's also looking at your body composition analysis, and you're making sure that you're getting enough calories. Of course, if you don't eat enough, and you don't exercise, you're going to lose some muscle mass. And quite certainly you might be losing weight. And if you stop using the product, you might gain it back. But if you're exercising and you maintain or build your muscle mass during that time, and muscle is the key to longevity, it is our metabolic currency. So if you're driving your own metabolic need, when you stop those products, you won't go back to, gaining the weight in the first place. So if you're going to use those products, those GLP-1s, train, get your weight training in. But a lot of people sometimes, they can't do that right away because they're injured, or, they need to recover first. And that's okay. You can use them simultaneously while you're recovering. But at some point, probably, hopefully by, the 3rd month mark, and after you've recovered and you've rested your adrenals, and you've used some TA1, and you've decreased the inflammation in your body, and you started to feel better, you can start somewhere, to start to train again. And if you're getting side effects from those products like nausea and constipation, they're not for everybody. Like I said, really, they work great in people that have insulin resistance and diabetes, and really need to address the appetite, people that are overeating, because they work by delaying gastric emptying. So you feel full, you feel full, you can't eat as much, even your appetite will change. Like you don't desire the fatty foods as much, and the things that are probably contributing to the weight gain in the first place. They do help you make better choices, so that you might think twice before you really start to eat the wrong things. So they are very helpful for people who truly need them. But in some people, they cause a lot of nausea and constipation, like say a person that already has a slow underfunctioning thyroid. One of the side effects of low thyroid is, having constipation. It's very common. You run on the side of slow digestion. And so those products might not be appropriate for you, but there's a peptide called, and they are peptides, by the way, but there is a peptide called MOTS-c, MOTSC, MOTS-c, that is a mitochondrial peptide. We upregulate it naturally in our mitochondria when our mitochondria sense metabolic stress. So our mitochondria, remember, are like the part in our cell that make energy. They make ATP. That's how we feel, energetic. When we're young, we have a lot of mitochondria, and as we age, our mitochondria also age, and we don't make as many mitochondria. And so our energy production goes down, we feel tired. And it's also what's at the root of a lot of, thyroid disorders and really a lot of other disorders in the body. We don't talk about, mitochondrial health enough. But MOTS-c can also help with weight loss in a way. I don't think it's as profound as the GLP-1s, but it does help address insulin resistance. And we also know that it can help to stimulate AMP kinase, which is one of these kind of performance pathways. So we have a lot of athletes that like to use this one because they feel more energetic. They're making more mitochondria. It's also stimulating PGC1 alpha, which is a very anti-aging pathway, let's say. So, and again, more mitochondria, that is one of the hallmarks of aging, is the loss of mitochondria, so we're addressing aging with that peptide as well. So I like this one for people that have, some insulin resistance, but also are like, I love anti-aging, I want to do anything to age. Okay, use some MOTS-c. This is a great foundational peptide. Again, very safe, really no downside effect to it. Some people experience injection site irritation because the pH of that peptide is a little finicky, but it goes away. It's, maybe that day, and then it gets better. And you'll feel quite good with that one because you're improving the way your mitochondria function. So those, I would say, are probably my top 5, peptides that almost everyone can benefit from to treat those really foundational issues. And anytime we start any longevity program, I can tell you like 4 to 5 of those we're using in almost every single person. Not everyone needs the growth hormone peptides, but when they do, or if they have an issue sleeping, those ones can be one of the best things, to address that for sure.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so maybe you could just expound a little bit on this, because if peptides are amino acids that are essentially neurotransmitters, right? They trigger your body and they tell your body what to produce. I think something that's key, and maybe you could just share a little bit more about this, is you're not supposed to, like, every single peptide's different, right? Like some of them are like, what is it, like twice a year? Is it like BPC 157? Is that correct? Or is it 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off? Some of them, like, they all have a specific schedule, right? Because the whole goal is they trigger your body to produce it like on its own, right? So they're not, and the reason I bring this up is because I know people that try, like, they just go and they'll buy it off, like, other distributors, like they're trying to get it for cheaper. But I feel like that can be risky because you don't know, like, the lab conditions or the standards of where you're getting them from. Be under medical supervision on the schedule, right? Like, you're not supposed to just take them endlessly. And then it's very important, and this is something, I'm actually due another detailed lab to see my lab work. But what's the frequency, you would say? Is it every month, every 2 months that we should be redoing our blood work and our biomarkers to know how we're doing, and then like consult with like someone like you or to see how to adjust them, or like what are your
are your recommendations there?
Yeah, a couple of things that are really, good that you mentioned and brought up. And by the way, there's over 7,000 peptides in the body, so
Wow.
I mean, really that we know about, but much less in clinical use. I didn't mention that before. And the other thing to note is that peptides are never toxic in the body. They break down into their parts, like into amino acids. So they don't have toxicity to the liver or the kidney, like medications, for example, and they also don't have any drug to drug interactions because they don't, degrade on those CYP enzymes like medications do. So we don't have to worry about, if someone's on other medications. So the safety is quite good. But again, I agree that you shouldn't really be trying to navigate these things because peptides are meant to be cycled in most cases. There's a few exceptions like the thymosin alpha-1. Some people stay on that year round, because it's just twice a week, yeah, so it depends on the product. But yeah, and the other thing is peptides are expensive. They're not, cheap medicine for sure. They're powerful, and they have an effect that is quite profound. But you should also know how to use them because sometimes you don't need to use them that often. And also, yeah, what are the risks of using them, too long? Maybe you just start to see that, if you injected a whole vial of something, say, for example, you might like the CJC 1295, you might feel really flushed and maybe you just kind of like make that receptor a little less, sensitive, but you probably wouldn't, have any overdose or anything like that, but it is true that, using them in an interval or, as a course is beneficial. And I also like to use them sort of in a way that makes sense too. Like I said, addressing those foundational things and kind of moving through a process. And I make this example all the time. I get a lot of people that are really like, biohacking, and kind of like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this thing, and sometimes like when we jump into some of those therapies that the body's not prepared for, let's say, you might not have the best outcome and you might also have some side effects that are really unwanted. I see this a lot with NAD, for example. I love NAD IVs. I think, a lot of people enjoy the energy that comes from them and this kind of thing. But sometimes people don't feel good when they get them. It is producing a lot of energy in the body. And sometimes some people have more cells that are, more senescent in the body, or they have more inflammation, and the immune system has to respond to all that. So if your immune system isn't really primed, by the time you start some of those therapies, you might not feel good. You can have some sort of strange reactions with them. Not that it's harmful, but you probably feel a little bit worse before you feel better, but there's a way to prevent that. And it's really about just kind of like priming your body to accept those therapies, and avoid some of those, side effects. Yeah, peptides, like I said, very powerful. I definitely recommend doing them under some guidance just so that you're not wasting your time. Also your money, they're expensive and you want to know kind of how to cycle them, how to dose them appropriately. You don't, that way you don't waste your time, waste your money, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what would you say to all the controversial sort of information out there? When I Google peptides, you'll have all these doctors coming on, like conventional doctors, a lot of them, but they'll be just saying they're so dangerous, don't do it. And they'll give you, all these reasons. And I think we've talked about it. You do have to be careful. Listen to your body and definitely listen to a physician, to somebody who's trained in this. But which peptides are FDA approved? Yeah, like what are your thoughts on that? Like on anybody telling you like don't do it or be careful? Like even just a week and a half ago here in Dubai, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this, or if he does, like whatever. But there's this really advanced fitness facility place, it's Dubai, like city of the future. It's called Formation. Actually, I want to go do a few sessions there, but they have all these super advanced machines that you put your body on, and they're like powered by AI. And it's like you do like guided sort of different workouts, and it's supposed to be like a whole week's worth of going to the gym or something in like one session. And they have like all these super advanced machines. And anyway, the gentleman that like the manager there, he was, he's actually publishing a book, which I want to read, but he says he's done so much research on like everything health. And he just in conversation, so I'm not meaning to hone in on that if he didn't mean it in this way, but he says something like, everyone is so obsessed with biohacking and everyone's just trying everything. And it's like, there isn't enough research. There aren't enough use cases on all these different methods. Like, stop, like, be careful. Like, some of them will help you in the present, but in the long run, they actually will shorten your lifespan. Or like, he was bringing up all these very interesting concepts that I hadn't really heard of very much. He's like, you can optimize for the present or for this, but it has an effect on your longevity. Or if you go for the longevity approach, it usually means like a more like a milder sort of approach to your health and everything. And so I don't know, he really got my brain going on these concepts. That's why I want to read his book, and I'll see if maybe he wants to come on the podcast too to just share a little bit more about what he's talking about. But it struck me because he just mentioned peptides. He was like, yeah, like peptides and stem cells. And I'm like, oh no, I've done both. Weird. No, but so I'd have to go back and ask him, but he brought it up and he got me thinking, like, and then plus all this information you'll find on YouTube, which is why I also wanted to do this podcast with you, because, like, sure, yes, we need to be careful. And I know there's something to be said about FDA approved, but we also know there's a lot involved, in terms of what gets FDA approved. And sometimes, not all the time, there's like other agendas in play, and we all know like the pharmaceutical industry is a huge one in the States. I don't know how much so globally, but I imagine so as well. So I take all of those things, like, I listen, but I take it, with like heat, as also with like, it's always like they say in crypto, like, do your own research. And so anyway, all of this to say, like, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because I know that this is something you're obsessed with, and you both use yourself, you've seen great results, you help so many people with it as well. And so I'd be curious, to hear your thoughts on what you would say to people that are, telling everybody don't do it, or doctors that are saying don't do it, or conventional doctors especially saying like there's so many negative side effects, or we just don't know enough about peptides to be so confident in taking them. Like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think I'm with you there that, it is always reassuring that there's been enough, human testing and, things like this before you just jump into, injecting something or taking anything internally in your body that, could have some sort of effect. And like I said, peptides are powerful. And I do believe that we will see many more peptides becoming approved in the future, and we see which ones, what's going on with the clinical development of peptides. It's amazing. It's actually, I believe, the future of medicine, and here we have, two, if we are questioning peptides, semaglutide being the, $13 billion drug, it's like the number 3 most selling drug. It's a peptide, and it makes me realize, like, gosh, I always thought also that people would not be compliant when it comes to injections, but when it comes to something that's going to help them to lose, 10% of their weight, they're like, oh, sign me up, I'll do it, So the compliance, I mean, there's definitely things with peptides that make them difficult to develop. They're hard to stabilize. They're prone to hydrolysis. There's many things that make it difficult to make a peptide actually a product that will work and will, have some effect. And like I said, there's 7,000 that they know about, much less in clinical use. But they're getting better at really understanding how to make these products bioavailable in the body. And the ones that I've been, talking about, like I said, thymosin alpha 1, it's already FDA approved in over 30 countries. There's another one that's cerebrolysate, which is actually not a synthetic type of peptide, these strings of amino acids. It's actually made from an organ of an animal. It's made from pig brain, actually, but it's made up of a bunch of different types of peptides. And it's a neurologic peptide that is used and approved for treating stroke and TBI, and even things like Alzheimer's. I've seen amazing results with this peptide. Some people choose to use it just as a neurologic, like a nootropic type of product where they can inject it just subcutaneously. But yeah, I think it is reassuring to have some approvals, of course. I definitely am a little bit more open to, experimenting with things, on myself. But I'm not with other people, let's just say. I still think that people need to do their own research about it, and always be looking at the studies. That's something that one of the reasons why I respect Dr. Suti a lot too, is that he is always looking at studies. And even in the peptides, I'm always looking at what is the most recent study, because as some of these things are developing, sometimes things change, and so I definitely think that there's a massive safety profile of peptides compared to pharmaceuticals, in terms of, potential interactions or, toxicities in the body and things like that, so I love the fact that they are analogs of what we make naturally, but again, there's still eliciting an effect. I still believe that, you should be guided by a doctor. You should rule out if you have any other, risk factors, even with semaglutide, a person that has, a thyroid cancer can't use that product. So we need to know what are the indications around that product, what types of risks are there, and what is the safest way and the best way to use those products. And of course, I mean, it's just like any other thing that you sign up for. If it's, taking this drug combination to treat your blood pressure, cholesterol, for depression, and this and that, you're also taking a risk, when you put those products into your body too, so at the core of it, I am all about having a healthy lifestyle. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about, how important it is to, be really paying attention to what you're putting in your body, from starting from food, also from, what you're digesting, even from, from what you're consuming in the media, what you're consuming, in your relationships, what you're consuming in, every part of your life, that could have some effect in the way that you feel and your stress levels, of course, these are all really important parts of health. And I can tell you, like, after working in integrative oncology for 10 years, we can heal ourselves with next to nothing. I mean, really, it's phenomenal what our body is capable of when we get out of our way, and just let it do the healing. Fasting is a good example of that. I mean, fasting is tremendous from a healing perspective. I don't recommend it to some people that have adrenal fatigue. Sometimes we need to nourish the body, but with the appropriate things, to kind of remind the body that it's not in a stress state. So there's lots of ways that we can improve healing from a natural level, but I do really love having, peptides as part of the toolbox, and that's, again, alongside things like hormones when you need them. I'm a huge fan of, hormone replacement when you need it, or supplements, because unfortunately we're just not really getting, the micronutrients. We always talk about macros and getting your protein intake, but we don't talk enough about micros. So there's a lot of things, right, that make up how are this amazing, thing functions, we call our body. It's not just one thing or another, but I think it's just really being in the right hands of the person to guide you, and it really takes you being an advocate for yourself to find, that person that, can really guide you to better health.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and experience. I think this is a good place to pause for this conversation. I'd love to bring you back, but thank you so much. And just quickly, for those watching, like, what's the name of your company, or how do they contact you?
My telemedicine company here in Thailand is called True Healthcare, TRU, no E, true.healthcare. So my email is nikki@true.healthcare, NIKKI. So you can always, even on the forums on our website, you can just, inquire. I don't do a lot of, marketing or, anything like that, because, just always have, referrals and people like yourself, coming and sending other people to me. So I really like to work with people that are pretty serious about, improving their health, and, but anything big or small, I'm always happy to even just answer a quick question. I really, like I said, I'm a nurse at heart, that's really what I'm in it for, is helping you to, feel better and be the best version of yourself, and it's possible. Please reach out through there. And our peptide company is called Genoracle, with a Genoracle, and we actually are partners with the International Peptide Society. They recognize us as being sort of the really only real certified source of peptides on the side of the planet. And we've been in Bangkok for 3 years in the compounding pharmacy there. You cannot get them directly from the pharmacy. You have to work with a physician. Many of the doctors here in Thailand are already learning about peptides and adding them into their treatment spaces too. So I can always refer you to someone also, that if you want to work with a doctor in other parts of Thailand too. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Nikki, so much for coming on, sharing your stories, letting us meet Mr. Bodhi. I've been dying to just
I know. When you get back, we could have a full cuddle session. He'll love it.
Oh my God, I can't wait. What a cutie. And he looks so much like you. You guys can't tell, but Nikki has the most stunning eyes, and her baby got them too. Cute. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you.
Yeah.
We'll be back in December sometime. So
I can't wait. Can't wait to hug you.
Yes. Have a wonderful day. Thank you
so great to talk to you.
much.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Okay, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Nikki Stewart. As promised, all of her links and all the companies that were referenced throughout the video are going to be linked below. I'd ask you one more time, please subscribe and follow me on my social media. Everything's linked below. I'm still growing, and I'd really appreciate it. And this content is for you. My heart goes out to every single woman, everyone really, but every single woman, and just the diversity that we are, the things we go through, the challenges. And so all of the content I bring on this channel, and I have several episodes already recorded, are to enrich your lives, encourage you, uplift you, have you know you're not alone. There's somebody that I'm going to bring that's going to speak to you, or that you'll be able to relate to. And if anything, I hope it breeds a sense of compassion and understanding and appreciation for each other. Every single woman, is so different. We're all so different, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from each other and support each other. All right, that said, it's a wrap, and I will see you in the next episode. My next 2 speakers are amazing. Just a few hints or clues. One of them is a CEO and founder who's also a mom, and we just go into how she, both what she's doing. It's a really interesting conversation from a founder's perspective, but also very interesting in terms of how she juggles motherhood. And then the next one is all about AI. So that's it. I'll leave you. Have a wonderful day, whatever you're doing, and I can't wait to see you back here.